global news has never been without regional and international tensions. Despite the calls of the majority in the international community to resolve international and regional conflicts by peaceful means, most of these efforts have failed. And what we see today of conflicts made even some countries that used to adopt neutrality and do not pay much attention to military force, gradually shifting to focus on building its army, as is the case with Germany, which took a decision to build a strong army after it saw Russia's war on Ukraine. Russia's war on Ukraine also made Sweden and Finland abandon their neutrality and submit a request to enter NATO to secure their national security against any possible external attack.
One of the factors that determine the strength of a country's army is the number of trained regular army personnel. The number of regular army personnel varies from country to country. This video sheds light on the factors that affect the number of military personnel in a country and why some countries, although they are rich and have a large population, are able to recruit a larger number, but they have not. My study showed that the number of armies in countries ranges between 1 and 14 soldiers for every 1,000 citizens in this country. There are exceptional cases for some countries where the number is even greater than 14 soldiers per 1,000 citizens, but these countries are very few. The arithmetic average of the number of regular army personnel for all countries of the world is 5 soldiers per 1,000 citizens. However, as I mentioned, there are countries where the number of soldiers is up to 14, and others are 1 per 1,000 citizens. On what does it depend? First, when the population of the country is very large, this country will not need to recruit a large proportion of the population, as is the case for China, which has a ratio of soldiers equal to only 1.6 per 1,000 citizens, yet the number of its army reaches 2,183,000, which is the largest in the world, so it does not need to recruit a larger proportion than population to reach this large number of soldiers. The same is true of India, which has only 1.1 soldiers per 1,000 Indian citizens, yet its army numbers 1,395,100. Second, international obligations, historical reputation, global role, and the policy of staying in the lead and leading the world, as is the case with the United States of America, which impose on it that the number of its army be large and strong, despite the fact that the number of America's population is 4 times less than India, but the number of its army reaches 1,347,300 soldiers, i.e. a percentage of 4.2 per 1,000 U.S. citizens, which is greater than the proportion of India and China. The third element that determines the number of military personnel in a country is the pending regional disputes and threats from neighboring countries due to border disputes or ideological differences, as well as threats or fear of distant countries due to different political or ideological approaches or both. Such a situation forces the state to recruit a larger proportion of its citizens, which is what we see in South Korea and North Korea. The two countries live in a state of border, ideological and political conflict that made the two countries race to recruit a larger percentage in the army, where the proportion of South Korean army personnel reaches 12.4 per 1,000 citizens, and North Korea has reached 47.4 recruits per 1,000 citizens, which is a very large number compared to other countries. Also, Israel, the ratio reached 21.6 soldiers per 1,000 Israelis, which is a very large number and much higher than the world average. Fourth, the small number of residents makes the state obligated to recruit a larger percentage of the population to provide protection for its state against the armies of larger or stronger neighboring and non-neighboring countries, which applies to countries such as Jordan, UAE, Saudi Arabia and others. Jordan has a soldier ratio of 12.3 per 1,000 Jordanian citizens, the Emirates 10.6 per 1,000 citizens, and Saudi Arabia 8.1 per 1,000 Saudi citizens. Fifth, there are countries with relatively large populations and economic strength, but the number of their army personnel is not large, and the ratio of army personnel to the population is less than the world average, which is 5 soldiers per 1,000 citizens. An example of this is some European countries such as England and Germany. England has a soldier ratio of 2.4 per 1,000 citizens and Germany has 2.2 soldiers per 1,000 German citizens. The English army does not exceed 152,3500, while the population of England reaches more than 67 million, and the German army does not exceed 176,800, while its population reaches more than 80 million. And if we compare Germany with Egypt, which has a population close to the population of Germany, but Egypt has an army of 438,500 and a recruitment rate of 4.6 per thousand Egyptian citizens, although Egypt is much weaker economically than Germany. The reason for what was mentioned in the fifth item is that these countries, such as Germany and England, were either dependent on military alliances with other countries or on qualitative technological progress in their war equipment and parts, or that this country lived in a state of neutrality and had guarantees from other countries, as is the case with Sweden and Finland. However, the recent situation that occurred between Russia and Ukraine made many countries reconsider their defense and military policies and turn to enter into military alliances, devote more military budgets and focus on building larger, stronger and more technologically advanced armies.